Canadians have had a large history with immigration. Everyone from the Vikings to the British have traveled from shores far and wide to find new land, and settled here for our national wonders and natural beauty. Currently, our immigrants make up 20% of the country overall. Ever wonder what your place in this country was? What reasons you had for immigrating to Canada? My place in Canadian history is a rather strange one. My parents have had reasons to come to Canada, but have also had many troubles coming to the country as well. My grandfather had been working as a personal manager in road transportation, while my grandmother had been working as a nurse for Employee State Insurance. My mother had been born on August 12, 1970. She had lived in the rather large city of Vijayawada when she had been born. My father had been born on 1967 in Buyuru. He lived in a rural area for a while and then had to move to an urban community to study and get his degree. My mother and father were both very studious, and eventually my father had received his PhD in plant biochemistry in 1994, and my mother had received her master's in agriculture in 1995. They had met in 1996 and were introduced to one another. It had been an arranged marriage for them. At first, the happy couple had decided to focus on their work. My father had worked as an SME in projects for business development, and he had started in 1996. My mother had been working in rural development watershed projects since 1997. For 3 years, everything was fine for the happy couple, and life was good, and the lifestyle they had was respectable. But at the year 1999 or 2000, the couple had wanted a child. They had also wanted a better quality of life for the child while he was growing up. See, the children in Indian countries were very competitive, and the education system matched that. They had been forced to work tirelessly, day and night, just to get the job that they had wanted. The pollution in India was also very, very bad. Trash had littered the streets for a long time. However, the main reason that people, such as my parents, had wanted to immigrate to Canada was the ideal concept that Western countries were just better than Eastern at that time. My parents had decided to immigrate to Canada after sending applications to both Canada and the USA. Canada had responded to them quicker, so that's where they had decided to go. They had friends in Canada who picked them up from the airport and stayed with them while in Gulf getting settled for Canada. My parents had then rented a basement and my dad had got to applying for jobs. Now this was after the events of the dot-com crash. The internet had provided one of the biggest booms to the overall economy. Investors had invested large amounts of money in businesses with no clear business plan. This was thought normal due to the dot-com theory, investing huge amounts of money in small starting companies. The dot-com theory is for an internet company to survive and grow, it depends on rapid growth of its customer base. Now there were a huge lack of jobs in the computer field, a field in which a lot of early immigrants could get into. Now employers wanted Canadian work experience. My parents had run into their first problem, apart from the weather and transit, of course. Considering that my dad had never been in a -1 degree Celsius scenario, it stretched his boundaries of imagination and reality, to be frank. As I would so eloquently put it, from his descriptions, go butt naked into the freezer and then come out for equivalent effect. He says, if your knuckles aren't white, you're not doing something right. Well, apart from that, their lack of Canadian work experience was also a major factor in their overall discomfort. This lack of Canadian work experience had forced the highly educated and trained individuals that are my parents to work in factories welding windows as their only source of income. Now, in September 6, 2000, however, they changed all of their minds because of one major event. Something so great that they had to put in a new spin on their dire situation. I was born in Gulf, Ontario, for which even my grandmother had come to visit. My mother had started to work harder. Uh, Approximately 2 months after I had been born, she had received a job as a computer program developer, despite the dot-com crash. After seeing the conditions that my parents were in at the time, my grandmother decided it would be best to take me to India while my parents had time to get their things together and finally earn a stable lifestyle in Canada. Then my parents had saved enough money in order to rent an apartment in Mississauga instead. I came back to them in May 2001 and stayed with them for the rest of my life. Unfortunately, I came back at close to the events of 9/11. This had been a huge event for a lot of immigrants. For those who are all not familiar with these events, on that fateful day, let me explain as best I can. On September 11, 2001, nine militants of the Al-Qaeda had hijacked four airliners that had destroyed the World Trade Center in the USA. It had been a fateful blow to many immigrants in North America, and this had increased security measures in USA by a great deal. Now, we did live in Canada, and for the most part, this had softened the blow. We had to endure countless mutters and overall glares, but nothing bad happened to us, such as bombings or anything that happened in USA. In one instance, I can remember a bombing of a Hindu church, or a temple, sorry. Uh, Eventually, my dad had got a new job working in pharmaceuticals, and then on had training in business analysis and SAP computer programming-esque things. In 2009, he got a job for Hydro One, and it is his current job. My mom had moved up in the company Terranet in 2004, and and as a secret programmer, and went up to the rank of project manager. My parents eventually got everything settled, and now we have moved to a small home close to Deepwood Heights as of 2010. Eventually, I moved again to Erin Center. Uh, Once again, in 2003, however, I had left Canada to spend more time with my family in India. But I know I had a second home. We had finally settled down in Canada.